Good afternoon. It's Monday the 13th of January 2014, just after 1 o'clock. Welcome to another edition of UK Column live from our Plymouth, England studio. I'm your host this afternoon, Brian Gerrish. With me in the studio, Mike Robinson.
Good afternoon.
Well, first of all, we better cover the weather. We've consulted the UK Column supercomputer and it's giving us a W or X, which based on a rising barometer at 990 and southwesterly winds, the prediction is pretty unsettled with the probability of more rain. So we're pretty confident with that. And thank you very much for the person who sent through a little independent forecast of Plymouth today. So it's pretty gloomy across UK, and if it's bad in England, we can expect it to be worse north of the border. Well, of course, not only the weather, they've got to contend with Alex Salmond, and the British Treasury has been making some interesting offers.
Well, they have. So the Treasury have sent a note to investors promising that all British debt will be, backed up by the UK government, whatever that turns out to be. And I suppose they've been pushed into this because obviously if there's any doubt on the markets, these independent markets, that Scotland may not be in a, may have to deal with its own debt post-independence, possibility of independence, then that would push the price of UK debt up now, straight away. So UK government saying that they're going to back all of Scotland's debt, and basically what will happen is that Scotland will then, any payments that the UK makes on Scotland's behalf, Scotland will theoretically then have to reimburse the UK, whatever's left of it. But really, at the end of the day, we have the situation where Scotland, supposedly independent, is still going to have to work under the auspices of the Bank of England. And now it seems like it's still going to have to work under the auspices of the UK Treasury. So what's changing?
Well, nothing apart from a smokescreen as to what's really going on. We've had one or two people, mainly expat Scots, saying to us that, well, of course, we understand why Scotland would be asking for independence. And our reply to this is, I'm sorry, but we've got to look deeper into these issues because, of course, Scotland is not being offered independence. It's being offered European-style independence, which essentially means a region within the EU superstate. And, of course, we've recently mentioned, I think, that the EU is now openly starting to call for a United States of Europe. So we move further on to that dictatorship. Well, of course, who have we mistakenly let control the Treasury? Well, is he really in control, or is he just a puppet of the bankers? I think it's more that situation, really. But George Osborne, he's now demanding EU reform to aid economic recovery. We're saying this is lies and obfuscation because, of course, they have no control over the EU. And if we watch what's happening in the country, it's becoming very clear that we're now seeing this treasonous Conservative Lib Dem government simply destroying Britain's economic infrastructure so that we are all subsumed into the European Union as a vassal state. So don't think we're against the Scots. We'll be joining you inside the European prison camps unless we all do something about it. And I think we can. But the lies and blusters goes on across the heart of the Tory party. So Wicked Willie Hague here says that we're stuck in the EU club. David Cameron believes it's possible to reform the EU from within. Well, since we have known for 18 years that the European Union is a criminal organisation which has been unable to properly and fully audit its public accounts, the chances of reforming it from within are zero. So this is more lies from Mr. Cameron. And we're going to say exactly the same thing is going on. This is a deliberate movement by the top of the Tory party to break the country apart. I was just going to say, if we just have a look at Wicked Willie, he's looking a little bit tired, don't you think, Mike? Maybe the stress of the photographs is beginning to weigh on his mind. Well, he has been in the press quite a lot. The Guardian here picking up on this. William Hague rejects Tory MP's demand for the EU veto. And of course, we're seeing it for what it is, really, that we don't have a proper functioning Westminster at the moment. We've got a dictatorship run by Cameron, Osborne and Hague, and if you don't like the way they do it, you're probably going to be rubbished in the press or blackmailed or gently booted out. So we see the beast starting to emerge. We all put these people in power. It's up to us to make sure they're replaced. And I couldn't resist picking up on this article, because what more do we need to reveal the pathetic state of our politicians than an article which is about Clegg reckoning that he could take on bruiser Ed Balls because little Cleggy's learnt a little bit of kickboxing. Presumably he's been doing that with his wife or something, I don't know. But do we really have to put up with these people? Puerile, pathetic, immature. Is it any wonder we got problems in the country? Well, we could leave it to Ken Clarke. Apparently he's now been given a roving brief, which is something to do with business and the economy. And we'd just like to say, is this headline real? Is he really selling our healthcare? Does this include all the deaths in the hospitals, do you think, Mike? Or
maybe he feels the Chinese have a population problem.
We should have a picture of him here. Well, this is the man that is abroad selling our healthcare. So we've got an NHS that can't run its accounts. We've got elderly people being killed off in the Liverpool care pathway. I think this is about Ken Clarke selling Big Pharma and the drug industry to the Chinese, who of course are not squeamish about killing off a few tens of million people when necessity arises. And we can also see the attack on the civil service and the public sector increasing. The Telegraph here picked up on pay from what it calls the top 800 mandarins and quangocrats who earn over 100,000. Now remember, of course, it was David Cameron, Francis Maude and the Tories who said that once they got in, they were going to have a bonfire of non-governmental organisations and quangos. Well, of course, Francis Maude was also supposed to make the Conservative administration more transparent than any there's been before. Well, he failed to do that, and they failed to get rid of these massive salaries. What's interesting is the headline says pay over 100,000, but if you go on the Telegraph's website in this article, they've actually got a little table which comes up on screen. Have they been watching the UK column, do you think, Mike? I don't know. And what you will find is the overwhelming number of salaries are actually well over the 200,000 and up to the 300,000 bracket. And it's very interesting to see, of course, that we've got the Green Investment Bank here paying absolutely vast salaries. I don't know whether we know much about that little organisation, Mike, but what's going on? Well, we think that this is equivalent to the MPs. So these people have been given their huge pay so that they could start feeding on the trough. Now what we're seeing is they're being humiliated and undermined in public. So our opinion here at the UK column is we are now rapidly seeing this massive attack on our institutions to destabilise the country. Why would you want to do that? To pull us into the EU superstate. And behind the scenes, there's been some very interesting polls going on. The Guardian has reported on a couple of these. A State of the Nation poll. I feel a bit aggrieved about this because having done several talks under the title State of the Nation, they didn't bother to contact me, but maybe that's a little bit arrogant for me to say that. We've got another one here with Eric Pickles, the unlikely revolutionary. So we've had another survey into immigration. What we're interested in is who is behind this. And this is the organisation, British Future.
I like the red eye.
They've got a big red eye, of course, based up in London. Trust us, we're independent, of course. Well, follow the money is always the golden rule, so let's have a look. Well, here we are. We mentioned the Diana, Princess of Wales Memorial Fund last week in regard to a national Centre for Social Research. So very interesting that Diana's name should be used for this type of deep political research. We've got the Oak Foundation, we've got Unbound Philanthropy, we've got George Soros's Open Society, we've got the Trust for London, and we've also got the Barrow Cadbury Trust. So we're going to say to viewers and listeners today, if you do not understand what this type of organisation is and what these people are doing in the background, you need to find out, because these are the people driving the political agenda.
Just before we move on, I want to ask a question about this, because my understanding is that trusts and foundations can serve no political purpose. So is it the way that it works is that they set up the trusts in order to fund the organisations that have the political purpose? So the trust itself doesn't have a political purpose, but the money that the trust spends has the political purpose. Is that how it's working?
Political common purpose. Yeah, I'd say that's about it. Well, we can actually explore what you're asking there, because I thought it'd be useful to have a look at some of the people. So these are some of the trustees. Shirley Kramer here from Cumbria, social work background, and then she goes on to public health. She's been in Washington, D.C. How do you do that? I don't know. This one's very interesting. Wilf Weeks, Public Affairs. He was Private Secretary to the Right Honourable Sir Edward Heath. And then the rest of his expertise appears to be in pictures. But no, this guy is helping to set policy in UK. Shamit Saga, political science, University of Sussex, but he's also involved with Yale, Toronto, and oh dear, he was a senior policy advisor with the Prime Minister's strategy unit in the Cabinet Office. So none of this detail picked up by the papers.
These are all totally independent people.
Of course, Mike, yeah. And let's just finish them off here. We've got a freelance journalist, Channel 4, BBC, Los Angeles correspondent. Stonewall broadcast, totally independent. We have to have a baroness. Somebody said to us the other day, every one of these has a baroness. Well, here she is. Barrister, of course, and she's interested in law in Trinidad and Tobago and Ghana. Perhaps she'd like to move back there, I don't know. And this one is also interesting because Mr. Ian Birrell worked for David Cameron during last year, so this is a historic document, last year's general election campaign as a speechwriter. So no political agenda there. Mr. Solomon, Bernardo's. So I don't know quite what we want people involved with children in this sort of thing, but we've got a BBC journalist, here he was with the World Tonight on Radio 4, BBC background, Bernardo's and children. Then we've got the international law firm. This is normal. And notice that he's a trustee of the Diana, Princess of Wales Memorial Fund, which just happens to be one of the organisations contributing money. It's good, isn't it? Barrow Cadbury Trust. Well, they're also contributing money. It's all independent, Mike, don't worry. And we'll finish on this one. We've got Alistair Murray, Migration, Globalisation, FTSE 100, NGOs, EU think tank, Centre for European Reform. This man is a globalist and an EU follower. So where's the information coming from in the national press? It's coming from think tanks funded by, amongst others, George Soros. Independent, absolutely not. Have a look for yourselves. Well, I know you were keen to talk on the Middle East, Mike, and this was just a headline from The Guardian. Syrian refugees no longer know who is winning. Sorry, who's fighting, let alone who's winning.
Yeah.
So what's actually going on there?
Well, basically, the Syrian rebel factions have split, and I think the Syrian moderate opposition, if we want to call them that, have succumbed to the pressure of being associated with the Al-Qaeda types. And so we now have the situation where the so-called moderate Syrian rebels are now fighting with the Al-Qaeda types as well as fighting with Assad. So we're looking at a general breakdown of Syria into absolute chaos. And this article in the Times is really demonstrating that a group of MPs, so we've got 95 Tory Eurosceptics, in addition to the letter that he recently received from 95 Eurosceptics, he has now received this letter. It's a cross-party group of MPs, includes Sir Ming Campbell and various other people, usual suspects. I would imagine that our friend Brooks Newmark is one of the signatories. And they say that we've got to arm the rebels, but we don't know which rebels to arm, actually, because, of course, nobody really knows who's fighting.
But if your aim is to destroy Syria as a country, you don't really have to know. You just pump the arms in there and let them do the work.
Well, indeed. Now, if we look at the next one, because this is typical of how this type of thing ends up. So we'll go and we'll arm these rebels, but in fact we don't really know who we're arming. Same situation in Libya, because now we've got 400 officers and non-commissioned army officers arriving in Italy to begin training as part of various agreements that have been signed with foreign military forces to build up the Libyan army and police. This is at the same time that the US Army has now confirmed that they will train between 5,000 and 8,000 Libyan troops beginning in May. Unfortunately, in Libya, same as Syria, we now have the situation that the Libyan government, now that we've got rid of Gaddafi, the Libyan government is largely controlled by Al-Qaeda linked the Libyan Islamic Fighting Group, as they're called, LIFG. And in fact, the Deputy Defence Minister, Khalid al-Sharif, was the deputy emir of LIFG before he was appointed to this post. So again, we find Al-Qaeda being the beneficiary of US support, and perhaps since the US basically set up Al-Qaeda in the first place, that's unsurprising. But nonetheless, bearing in mind that what we're told about Al-Qaeda being the enemy of the world, it's really a bit ridiculous that we're so openly
now supporting
them. Yeah,
it must be very, very confusing to be part of American and British intelligence these days, because one day these are the bad guys, and the next day, well, no, we're working with them, and then we're partly working with them. It's all a scam, of course, because what's really going on in the background is destroying countries. Just before you move on to this one here. I just thought I'd say, I wonder what Common Purpose is doing, because remember the political charity Common Purpose got a very large European Union grant to go into Libya to help rebuild their public infrastructure. So presumably Common Purpose will now be fully integrating a few Al-Qaeda people, probably with a bit of NLP thrown in.
Interesting. So this is a bit of good news. A dossier has been submitted to the ICC accusing British officials, including politicians, of Iraq war crimes. So the ICC is being urged to investigate the alleged war crimes of British officials during the Iraq conflict. It's a 250-page document entitled "The Responsibility of UK Officials for War Crimes Involving Systematic Detainee Abuse in Iraq from 2003 to 2008, and it's been published by the European Centre for Constitutional Human Rights, and it's calling for the opening of an investigation. It has testimonies from over 400 Iraqis, which includes thousands of allegations of mistreatment amounting to war crimes. Now, of course, Wicked Willie comes straight out. Now, he is basically saying that because the abuse was not systematic, so there was no systematic torture by troops, it was individual cases, and therefore there are no war crimes to investigate. But the dossier is said to name ex-Defence Minister or Secretary Jeff Hoon, his Defence Minister Adam Ingram, and Head of the Army General Sir Peter Wall. No mention of Tony Blair in the reports that I've seen. And then just finally on this issue, I came across this little advertisement for a meeting tomorrow at the Law Society in Chancery Lane, being set up by the people that have submitted this dossier to the ICC. There's contact details there, claire.hands@publicinterestlawyers.co.uk. If you'd like to go, then it might be good to have somebody there that could report back to us on what is said at that event. Contact Claire and see if you can get along.
Right. I'll just say that I look at this with great interest because, of course, what's really happened is British governments have drawn our armed forces into very complex engagements on the ground. Are you fighting a war? Not really. You've got a mixture of policing and fighting people who are armed and shooting at you. So there's some dirty dealings going on in the background here. And I believe that part of the agenda at the moment is to destroy confidence in Britain's armed forces in the same way that we're starting to see this occur right the way across the public sector. So the NHS or the banks or whatever. There's something very devious at work at the moment, which is undermining our confidence in our own nation state. And this doesn't help, really, does it?
No, indeed. So this is Belfast, Northern Ireland at least, and so public hearings starting today into allegations of historic child abuse in church and state-run homes in Northern Ireland. So headed up by Sir Anthony Hart, he will have a look at wrongdoing, as they're calling it, in children's homes, orphanages, industrial schools, workhouses, borstals. It's quite going back quite a long time. It's likely to hear from 300 witnesses. Most of them are going to give evidence in person, allegedly, but let's have a look at the types of organisations we're talking about. So some local authority children's homes, some borstals, two Bernardo's homes, and of course Catholic church-run homes. Now I'm not going to single out the Roman Catholic Church, although they seem to have had a bit more of this type of problem than others, but of course the Pindown situation was a Church of England school, so it does
Teresa
happen
Cooper
on both sides. But nonetheless, this is the list of institutions that are under investigation. Now, of course, rumours about this type of thing going on in Northern Ireland have been doing the rounds for over 30 years, and some of those allegations involved some very, very senior politicians, some very senior now retired politicians who like to say no a lot. And so the question has to be asked, why is this happening now? And why didn't it happen 20 years ago, 30 years ago, when people's memories were fresher and there was potentially more evidence around?
Well, I believe it's coming to the surface now because the truth has a habit of bubbling up to the surface, but we also know across the public sector there are still many good people, and indeed in the police service, whether it's in Northern Ireland or here. And of course, the sheer number of victims coming forward means that it's increasingly difficult for the establishment to keep a lid on what's going on. But we're going to say a bit more on that particular subject in just a couple of minutes. Well, John Hemming been speaking out.
Right, well, yes, indeed. John Hemming is telling parents suspected of child abuse. I mean, this is a disingenuous headline for a start. It tells parents suspected of child abuse to flee abroad. Of course, there are 10,000 children last year were attempted to be brought into care, and they were attempting to bring those children into care for many, many reasons, not just child abuse. So there are lots of different reasons, and to suggest that the only reason that children are being brought into care is because of child abuse is disingenuous as the mirror. But nonetheless, still thought it was interesting that John Hemming coming out in public and suggesting that parents leave the country.
Well, there's some very fascinating things here, Mike, because this statement, what John Hemming is admitting is that the UK has become a dangerous place for families. You could have your children taken by the state.
Now, we had a conference on this issue in Stoke. How many years ago was it? 3 years ago?
About three
years ago. And John Hemming got on the stage and said at that time, admitted at that time that the courts were utterly corrupt and that many parents were not getting a fair deal in the courts. But we're now 3 years down the line, and I'm sorry to be critical of John Hemming, but I don't really see that too much has changed, other than he has come out and made another public statement. Nothing's really been done in the meantime.
Well, this is absolutely correct, Mike. The simplest thing that he could have done, of course, is call a press conference with all of the mainstream press there and invite in the thousands of parents who are now involved, both with Mr. Hemming himself and other organisations, indeed those that have contacted the UK column, so that their evidence could be brought in front of an overwhelming number of people from the mainstream media. But Mr. Hemming has so far refused to do this. What we see is there's piecemeal involvement in cases, and we have many of the victims' families who are beginning now to point a finger at Westminster to say this is the subject being managed. But nevertheless, for Mr. Hemming to now say, well, parents should go abroad, is really saying that Britain has become too dangerous. The state is becoming too powerful, and so social services, which are correct. But I thought we'd just delve into this a little bit more, because Anthony Douglas, Chief Executive of the Children and Family Court Advisors and Support Service, said that leaving the country doesn't solve the problem for the vast majority of children and parents. And we've said in yellow, too right, Mr. Douglas, because social services hunt the children abroad until they can arrest the parents and seize their children, often using false testimony and fraudulent information. And of course, we're also seeing these tragic suicides now, where the pressure is too much for dad or mum, and they are committing suicide. And then, of course, we have still not forgotten Leanne Smith, who is still in prison in Spain, having killed her 2 children and attempted suicide herself, having been hunted across Spain. And the UK column, I think at the moment, is the only organisation which is still saying the truth about that terrible incident, and indeed the hunt for Martin Smith, Leanne's partner. The truth has still not been told, and the mainstream media have printed a whole range of half-truths.
And some outright lies.
Vilifying that couple. So there's more to be told, but let's have a look at Mr. Douglas here. And the subject really is conflict of interest, because we quickly find that this man is not only involved with CAFCASS, but he's also there in the British Adoption and Fostering organisation. You can find this yourself, but he was vice chair of BAAF for 3 years before succeeding Sir Edward Cazalet as chair in 2003. So here is a man who works in the courts. His team go into court, overwhelmingly supporting social services and the government line. And then when the children have been taken away from their parents, I just happen to work with an adoption and fostering agency in the background. You couldn't make it up.
Yeah.
So let's get into the meat of it. Many people got in contact with us to say, had we seen the Sunday Express, female MP abused boy in care? I'm just going to say, do notice this front page. That's an unbelievably serious headline, surrounded by free cookies, body and soul music, and the latest edition of Sherlock Holmes. So that front page, deliberately playing with people's minds. What's real? What's real is the abuse. Forget the rest of the trash on that front page. But in this article, we encourage everybody to read it. We're now seeing yet more evidence emerge of the fact that we have members of the establishment abusing youngsters. And our question is, are we going to see the Crown Prosecution Service close the doors on this sort of thing? Well, let's think of this one. We've got Cyril Smith. We've got Alison Saunders, who's the new Director of Public Prosecutions, on a mere $198,674 a year. Must be difficult to spend that. And, well, how many chums has she got within the legal profession? How many people has she still got links with? Who pulls her strings? I don't know. But is she really going to bring the brunt of the prosecution service to bear on these cases? And we've also got people like Bernard Hogan-Howe, Met Police Commissioner, and he says he will not investigate Cyril Smith. Why not? Why not? Cover up the people in positions of power who've been abusing children, we presume.
But I hear a rumour that Bernard Hogan-Howe is trying to resign.
We have heard that, actually. A number of people who've been doing some exceptionally good work on treason, reporting MPs for their treasonous activities in relation to the Constitution of the European Union have been telling us they have been picking up rumours that Bernard Howe was, sorry, I always get this man's name wrong, Hogan Howe, was trying to resign, but apparently they're not allowing him to. Do you think it's you stay in position because you caused the problem? Or do you stay in position because you know too much, or stay in position because we need the right man to make sure that the abusers go free because they're members of the establishment? We'll leave you to make your minds up on that. But of course, it's not going well for the police at the moment, and the Independent is saying that the police in particular have been infiltrated by criminal gangs. And what's very interesting in their article is they're blaming this on the Freemasons. Now, we are particularly interested in this little accusation because while many people would accuse the Freemasons of being involved in a range of inappropriate behaviour, it seems to us that this is oversimplifying what's going on here, because of course we also have organisations like Common Purpose that have become highly active in the police and the public sector right the way across the board, and wherever we find that organisation we find fraud and corruption, and indeed with Matthew Byrne and James Rennie we also find paedophiles. So I've got a feeling that this is all being made a bit simplistic. Let's blame the Freemasons. Let's not point a finger at our own politicians who, of course, have been working with criminal elements quite widely. And if we haven't got enough problems on this, here's Simon Hughes saying that the legal profession should do more to reflect modern Britain. So we haven't got stability at the moment in the legal profession. We've got a number of firms going out of business as their funding is cut. But this man now wants to shake up the legal profession. Everything here about turbulence, I think, Mike.
Yeah. Well, fracking. So late last week, King David spoke on the telephone with Donald Tusk, who's the Prime Minister of Poland. And he covered two main topics. First, he had a whinge at the abuse of the British benefit system by the Polish who, for example, come here and claim child benefit for children left behind with grandparents in Poland. Tusk's argument, well, his argument was that that's fair enough because Polish people are coming here and paying tax in Britain and they're not contributing anything to the tax system in Poland, so it's fair enough that they should receive child benefit over here. That may well be the case, I don't know, but as part of that same telephone conversation, all that sort of issue was set aside because David Cameron is so absolutely keen to press ahead with the fracking agenda, and as is the Polish Prime Minister, that they agreed to work together. So a Downing Street spokesman, according to this article, said on shale gas they welcomed the progress made to head off EU legislative proposals and agreed that there should be further cooperation to promote the benefits of shale gas across Europe and to ensure that the European Commission does not place burdens on the industry that prevent countries from realising the sector's full potential. So there you go. In the meantime, they're obviously so concerned about either this EU legislation or the fact that there's such a backlash arising over this issue that they've decided that bribery is the best option. So what they're doing is offering councils huge amounts of tax rebates in order to push and make sure that the planning permission goes through for any applications for fracking. Council's obviously a little concerned that local people are going to be against this thing, and so there's some toing and froing about whether to offer to award the planning permission or not. Government absolutely determined that they do, but they're not going to stop there because apparently they're going to bribe the local communities themselves. Now these local communities at present receive or are offered £100,000 lump sum payoff plus 1% of any profits made should there be any profits from a fully functional hydraulic fracturing drilling rig. and that might be as much as £1 million over 20 years or something like that. In fact, they're now proposing that this be pushed up to between 5 and 10%. So that's a rather significant. That's 5 or 10% of any profits that are awarded. That's a fairly significant bribe, isn't it?
It is, and I think I'm right in saying that the French have said we don't want fracking in France, but we're very happy to send our boys over to particularly England to take part in the spoils.
Well, indeed, that's absolutely true. So let's not forget that tonight at 9 p.m, Ian Crane will be on with the latest episode of Fracking Nightmare, where he will go into all these issues in more detail. Ian's actually up in Blackpool at the moment, so we're going to attempt a live link from Blackpool, and this will be the first time we've tried that with Ian, so fingers crossed that's going to work.
Okay. Well, before we leave people today, I've noticed that in the chat box somebody's commented, I think that the lady we mentioned as the new head of Director of Public Prosecutions, they're suggesting that she's common purpose. I'll be very grateful for more information on that one. And also, of course, mentioning the Freemasons has produced quite a lot of comment between people. But I'm going to say that the truth is always deeper than initially appears. And, of course, we are also well aware of where trouble is coming from. But we're also aware at the moment there's quite a battle going on at the lower levels between Freemasons who are now starting to run up against common purpose. To get this thing sorted out, we're going to have to deal with anybody who's behaving in inappropriate, wonderful word, criminal way. And of course, common purpose, particularly dangerous because of the use of NLP. Well, final article from the Mail here, and interesting little story. It says that the guillotine that was used to kill Hitler's enemies has been found in the basement of the Bavarian National Museum in Munich. People didn't know whether this guillotine should be kept or not, but the thing about the guillotine is that it was used to actually kill members of the resistance movement, the White Rose. So these were young people in Germany who stood up against Hitler and, as they say, paid the ultimate price. But it's fascinating that we should now be talking about guillotines in the present circumstance. I'd just like to point out that the UK column in 2008 wrote an article about the White Rose, and we would like to say how brave those young German people were to actually stand up against Hitler's organisation, knowing that their lives were on the line. So if any of you are thinking we've got problems at the moment dealing with the likes of David Cameron and William Hague and George Osborne, compared to those very brave youngsters, we've got nothing but a few idiots to deal with at the moment. So don't sit on the sofa, get out there doing whatever you can, and remember, at the end of the day, whatever you do, reasonable and peaceful, because this strips power away from this vicious dictatorship which is building. The rain is lashing on the studio window, so on that happy note, we'll leave you there. See you same time tomorrow. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.